Hi, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our crop hour here today on February 28th. I'd like to welcome you to the last week of this season's crop hour webinars. So we have today, tomorrow, and Thursday. I'm Laura Edwards. I'll be your lead moderator today and presenter. We also have Kevin Lau with us from the River Forecast Center with NOAA at National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and he and I will share the time today to talk about the climate and flood outlook for the spring season. As a reminder, I put a little bit of information in the chat feature for you. If you have a question or a comment, you can submit that through the Q&A feature, and those of us on the moderator or presenters can see that, and we'll address those in between the talks today. So I'll start by sharing my screen and leading us off with the first talk for today. I am the state climatologist with SDSU Extension based out of the Aberdeen Regional Center. So feel free to reach out if you ever have a question or comment or want the updated outlook and you haven't found it on the website, feel free to reach out and I'm happy to visit with you. For today, I'm going to talk mostly about the climate outlook for the spring and summer season, starting with the current conditions and kind of near term, weather and climate in the next couple weeks, month, and then go out through the summer season. And we'll talk mostly about temperature and precipitation, and drought is one of the most common questions I've been getting this winter. Basically, is the drought over is the big question, given how much snow we've had, especially in the central and east and southern part of the state. Certainly, we have seen some improvements in drought over the winter season. We have had obviously pretty good snow cover and snowfall measurements in the east, but in the west, especially the northwest, they've kind of been a little bit drier and not as much consistent snow cover over this winter season. But we have seen some improvements. Most of the state, and I'll show up South Dakota here. This is the current map that was released last Thursday. Everything in D1 or D2, so that brown and orange colors, we consider in some level of drought. The yellow color, that D0, the drought monitor means abnormally dry. So that may be kind of borderline, coming out of drought or maybe going into drought. Maybe there are some lingering impacts from the previous, the long-term dry period that we had last season and the year before, for example. So a lot of things could lead to abnormally dry conditions. We have seen a little bit of snow melt over the last month or so, and in between the big snowstorms, right? And actually, our soils are not frozen very deep under the snowpack, and I know Kevin will talk about that with frost steps. And so those periods where we've had some snow melt, we have seen increases in soil moisture. So soils are responding, and so some of that moisture is helping our dry situation from last year that we're carrying over into this year. Well, looking at the map right now, as of last week, we have about 57% of the state, so just over half of the state, in some level of drought. Compared to 3 months ago, we had about 90% of the state in some level of drought. So again, just showing we've seen those improvements by about 30 percentage points across the state, and a lot of areas have improved. As compared to 1 year ago, we had about 65% of the state in some level of drought, and that was mostly everywhere but the Northeast at that time. The Northeast last year at this time was really quite wet, and I'll show something about that too. So looking at soil moisture, I've kind of talked about this a little bit, and I think Kevin might talk about this too on the flood outlook side. But looking at North Dakota, South Dakota, and nearby areas, the red oranges are drier areas, and this is percentile. This is looking from the surface down to about 40 inches of depth. So kind of looking at the soil profile, you can see what areas are drier and the reds and oranges and browns, what areas are wetter. I do, just a little uh, grain of salt with this, I do think this product kind of over responds to the really dry and really wet. So I think they're overdoing it a little bit on that wet down in the Rosebud area, Bennett, Todd County area. But certainly they've had ample, ample snow cover and precipitation this winter. So certainly it's on the wetter side, but I don't know that it's that extreme. As compared to 1 year ago, we had quite a different picture with the northeastern part of the state, really much excess moisture, and most of the state in that gray color, which is about near average for this time of year, nothing really exceptional. And so that's just kind of reminder that a lot can change during the growing season. For example, last year in that northeastern corner, they started off with a lot of prevent plant, a lot of excess moisture on the surface. By the end of the season, they were looking at moderate to severe drought conditions. So within a season, a lot can change. Spring has something, spring snow melt and moisture, though, has a lot to do with how we start out, but a lot can happen as we go through the season. So this is South Dakota, anything can change, right? Looking at snow depth, with our mesonet stations, our weather stations across the state, all of our upgraded and new stations have snow depth sensors on them. And you can also look at each one of the stations on the website where they have webcams. Some of the stations are capturing more snow right in the fence area. So they may be reporting a little bit on the high end. But overall, you can see some areas have no snow cover in the west, northwest, and we have a little bit more in the east, but a lot of variability across the state. Another way to look at it is looking at one of the NOAA products from their hydrologic and remote sensing center. And this is a modeling or estimating snow depth. So they do use station data on the surface, but they also use a computer model also to help estimate snow depth where they don't have direct measurements. And so this gives you an idea here where you see the greens, especially out west. You see basically the ground surface there, so no snow cover. Really looking East River is where we see most of the snow cover. And some of these blues, we're looking at 8 to 16 inches, a lot of the areas. The lighter color, like around Huron, in between Redfield and Miller, more in that 2 to 4 to maybe 8-inch range. So we do see pretty substantial snow cover as compared to some of the previous, just recent couple of years anyway, which has helped to insulate the ground. I think it's done a good job protecting our winter wheat, for example, from some of the temperature extremes that we've seen with some very cold temperatures, on and off, even just a couple weeks ago with that really cold snap, last week. And these fluctuations that we're seeing, even just more recently with temperatures, 40s, 60s out west. So that snow cover can help a lot with insulating the winter wheat and alfalfa and some of those other crops as well. In addition to protecting our soil and preventing a really deep frost depth, which has some other implications as far as utility lines and those kinds of things. So we have pretty shallow frost depths under the snowpack on most of that eastern area. One other thing that's kind of playing a role here in our winter climate is La Nina, and this is the third La Nina winter in a row where we've had those cooler than average temperatures in the equator region of the Pacific Ocean. And more often than not, that means colder than average temperatures here in South Dakota, and that's on the right-hand side. When we look at March in general and similar in February, Temperatures tend to be cooler than average in La Nina seasons. La Nina now is expected to wane, to kind of fade away here this spring, sometime in the March to April timeframe. Um, it's very unusual to have 3 La Nina seasons in a row, or 3 El Nino seasons in a row for that matter. So finally, we're kind of getting to an end here. But yeah, often February, March is where we see the strongest signal of La Nina in the colder than average temperatures in those blue colors. Also on the left, though, however, precipitation, March is one of the few months where we do see a little bit of a connection with La Nina and precipitation. Most of the winter, there's no correlation. There's no connection between snowfall or total precipitation in La Nina. But in March, we do see a little bit of a dry signal in the south central, southeast corner of the state. So I know those are the 2 areas too that have had relentless snowfall, systems come through this winter. So I'm guessing they could use a little bit of a break, but we'll see. Kind of like investments in your stock portfolio, past performance is not necessarily an indicator of future performance, but we do see some trends here when we have La Nina in play. So as that fades away, we kind of lose that predictability of La Nina. And as we get into that spring transition season, we kind of move from these big frontal systems like cold fronts to more the thunderstorm activity that we see in the summer that can be very local. And so the outlooks in the long range in the spring and summer tend to be a little more challenging, at least on the precipitation side, as that kind of nature of precipitation changes to more thunderstorm and what we call convective activity. But for the near term, at least for the first week of March here, or at least 6 to 10 days out, we're seeing a trend towards cooler temperatures that's really kind of taking over the northwestern states, including South Dakota. So as we look out March 5th to 9th, we're looking at cooler temperatures. I know we kind of just had a pretty warm period, but we're going to see some temperatures kind of dip down here in the next week. And along with that, more chances of precipitation in that 6 to 10 day time frame. So again, March 5th through 9th. When we look out the next week, just the next 7 days total, this is the amount of precipitation that we're seeing. And to be honest, this blue area just right along the North Dakota, South Dakota border, most of that is happening today and tomorrow. There's going to be a narrow banded snowfall event right along the northern border here. And Aberdeen's kind of on the south end of it here. So after that, kind of quiet in the next 7 days, but then I think we'll see more chances of precipitation after that 7-day period kind of comes to an end. Generally lighter amounts, if anything, for the rest of the state. And this is looking at total moisture. So in that blue color, that dark blue is about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. And that's about the snowfall amount. If you say about a 10-to-1 ratio, we're expecting about 4 to 7 inches of snow here in Aberdeen and northwards. So that's about right. Looking out, leapfrogging there to the 8 to 14 day period. So this is March 7th through 13th. Really looking at colder than average temperatures, really taking over the northernmost, probably like 2/3 of the states here, of the lower 48 at least, including South Dakota. So you see the highest probability, the highest likelihood of that in the northern Rockies over Montana in particular. And then on the right, along with that, again, enhanced chances of wetter than average in that same time period, that March 7th to 13th, so that's second week in March. So it looks like we're not out of the woods yet. I hear a lot of folks ask me about state tournament time and how we always get March snowstorms and that kind of thing. And looks like this year might not be too different from that old wives' tale or that old tradition. looking at the 8 to 14 day period, looking at temperatures, I just showed you the map where we were looking at temperatures leaning towards colder than average. Certainly that's picking up on a slight risk too of quite extreme cold temperatures for this time of year. So again, March 7th to 13th. South Dakota is included in this area on that period, the 7th to 13th, where temperatures could be quite extreme cold for this time of year. Also on the snowfall side, slight risk, so about 20% chance, so slight risk of heavy snow in that 7th to 11th time period, March 7th to 11th. So again, after about a week from now, looks like we're going to see more chances of precipitation, including snowfall with those cooler than average temperatures. So we're not quite done with winter yet. We keep flirting with spring here with these warm temperatures, but I think we're going to see a return towards some wintry conditions here in that second week of March, at least for a little while. So looking at the March climate outlook, just a note here, this information is a little bit stale. It was published February 16th. These maps will be updating this afternoon around 3 o'clock Central Time. So keep an eye on that. But certainly they're kind of looking at the first couple of weeks of March already at that point. And they were indicating odds leaning towards colder than average and wetter than average across most of South Dakota for the month of March. And as we look at the information I just shared, that it kind of looks the way things are leaning, at least for the first couple of weeks, which could be cold enough to basically skew the whole month towards colder. And then again, those wetter than average conditions also favored across the northern Rockies and Ohio River Valley for sure, and upper Mississippi. So could be a cooler and wet start to the season. But I think, looking at how much moisture we have in the snowpack right now, as far as farming goes, we have a good moisture reservoir to start with. And I think early season, even if we have a little slower start in temperature, I think we'll be in a decent position on moisture. March through May, looking at those 3 months altogether, this information will not change today. This only is issued once a month on the third Thursday of the month. Still at that point, for March, April, May, we're still looking at that La Nina influence in that spring season. As I said, it kind of starts to fade away in that March, April timeframe. So that still has this La Nina flavor, and that's where you see the colder than average temperatures again, kind of holding on in the northern states, warmer across the south and east. And then here on the right, drier than average favored over the Four Corners states, wetter than average favored over the Midwest and Ohio River Basin. But up here in South Dakota, kind of a toss-up. As I said, that spring season is notoriously difficult to predict on precipitation. And we have, as we get in our increasing climatology, we're getting wetter this time of year. May and June are our wettest months of the year. And we have an increasing trend in precipitation as well in the spring season. So we have a lot of things that generally point towards wetter springs in general, but not always, right? Not always. June through August, as we look at June, July, and August, those 3 months pulled together, we also have kind of some uncertainty in the temperature outlook. The previous version issued in January was showing South Dakota with odds leaning towards warmer for this midsummer season, but they've kind of backed off from that a little bit, maybe due to the cooler start, maybe looking at what our moisture might be. But yeah, the models aren't really indicating anything really clear on the temperature or the precipitation side. And but the precipitation side, as we get closer into that season or closer towards that season of June, July, August, um, I think we'll learn more. But for right now, they're showing odds leaning towards drier in the Pacific Northwest and wetter in the Ohio River, Mid-Atlantic region. So again, we're kind of in the in-between, in the in-between side on precipitation. So what does that mean for us? Hoping for timely precipitation events. Again, I think we're off to a decent start, at least in the east. I think we still are going to see some lingering dryness in the west, just due to lack of snow cover and continued moisture over this winter season. I know January is very dry out west, but I think there's time to recover. But we're kind of at a tipping point. As I showed in the drought monitor, a lot of the state is in that D1 moderate drought, category, which I don't, in this time of year, it doesn't matter too much. But I think when we get into that spring and early summer, we can see that to be more as a tipping point where it can get worse or get better. And again, I think it's going to rely a lot on timely precipitation events. As every summer we see that a week or so where it's really hot and dry almost every summer. We just hope that doesn't happen, during a pollination week for corn or a grain fill time or things like that, which I know can really hit yield hard. So just hope that it doesn't happen in the very worst time of the season. Okay, just to touch on freeze dates a little bit, there's a new freeze date tool that's come out last fall from the Midwest Regional Climate Center. The URL is at the bottom of the screen here. This is looking at what is the trend in the last spring frost, the last 32-degree occurrence in the spring season. You can look at the fall and all that other stuff too. So typically we see our last spring frost in the southeast around the last week of April, 25th to 30th or so. In the north, say Aberdeen area, and the north, central, northeast, it's more like the second week in May, around May 5th to 10th or something like that. But you see a lot of orange on this map. This is looking at the trend. All these counties in orange are trending towards earlier frost dates in the spring. So for those of you who are farming and gardening both, we're starting to see that last spring freeze occur a few days earlier. You see some blue colors there in the west. That's due to a few recent years where they've had some very late frosts, say in May. So in late May, even like Memorial Day or later. So there's been a few years just very recently where they've had some very late frosts that have kind of that looks like the trend is going towards later. But there's a lot of variability no matter where you are in the state as far as when the last frost occurs in the spring. And we can also look at long-term trends as well for growing season length. And this is looking at how many days longer is our growing season. So from the last spring frost to the first fall frost. And almost everywhere in the state, we're seeing longer growing seasons. On the order of a couple days to more than a week, depending where you're at. And again, you see this funny blue county here with Jackson County. Again, they've had a couple really late spring frosts lately that have kind of skewed the trend a little bit. I just want to mention the mesonet here for a minute or two. If you haven't seen or heard of the mesonet lately, they're doing a lot of station upgrades and a lot of new station installations. They have about 50 stations across the state now, and they're building out to 150 within just a few years. This is a picture of what one of the new upgrade stations looks like. If you go on that website, Mesonet SD State EDU, that has all the live data every 5 minutes. And one of the biggest upgrades is precipitation. So you'll see this gauge here with these little fins hanging around it. That's their new upgraded precipitation gauge. that measures not just the rainfall in the warmer time of the year, but also melts the snow during the cold season and any other frozen precipitation that may occur. So we're getting year-round liquid precipitation, basically total precipitation. So we're really hoping this can help us monitor better for spring flood or flooding any time of year, and also drought and many other applications, mainly uses that you guys are interested in. And we still have our inversion data. If you're on the farming side and you do your own pesticide application, we still have the spray tool for pesticide applicators with the inversion data on there. And we have webcams on almost all the new upgrade and new installations. So a lot of cool ways to look at data now with weather data. If you live or know someone in one of these blue areas on this map, we're looking for some more folks who are interested in hosting a weather station. So take a look of where you might be, and if you know anyone in any of the blue shaded areas, they're looking for folks to volunteer. The website with more information is at the top there, mesonet.sdstate.edu/host, and there's more information on their website on what that means, what they ask of the landowner, and what SDSU will do, and all that kind of thing. So check it out if you're interested in hosting a Mesonet station starting in 2024 and beyond. With that, I think I mentioned our dry soils. We have pretty good snow cover now. That's done good work for us over the winter. We're crossing fingers for a nice gradual melt with our shallow frost steps. La Nina and the colder than average temperatures in March hopefully will fade away in April. And again, a lot of uncertainty as we get into the later spring and summer, both temperature and precipitation. But I'm optimistic for a good start to the season. Just a lot of uncertainty as we get through the growing season. So with that, I thank you for your time, and I will turn it over to Evan to start the poll for participants. We'd love to get your feedback on this first part. And we'll transition to Kevin Lau with the National Weather Service.